and worlds filled with tyrants terrorizing anyone who crosses their path. Few are as dangerous as Deathsaurus, whether it's Skeletor looking to take over Castle Grayskull and Eternia at large, Darkseid wielding the anti-life equation to wipe out life in the universe, or Sauron setting his sights on the One Ring in Middle-earth. Sometimes a villain's grand plans are a dangerous driving force behind their actions. In a galaxy where worlds are obliterated in an instant, there stands a monster who leads the onslaught. Prepare to enter a world where the Decepticon Emperor is hell-bent on destruction. This is the dark side of Transformers, the story of Deathsaurus. First joining the world of Transformers in the premiere episode of Victory in 1989, and teased in the Super God Master Force Super Secret Special. Deathsaurus is the Decepticon Emperor of Destruction. Many millennia before the events of Victory, Deathsaurus would face off with Starsaber over the construction of his planet-destroying fortress, where he would be defeated as his great weapon would be locked away in the Dark Nebula. In the years leading up to the events of Victory, Deathsaurus would take up command of the Decepticons from Overlord, granting him an army to defeat Starsaber once and for all. But like Decepticon leaders before him, the Autobots wouldn't be the only issue. Instead, an energy shortage would yet again guide the Decepticons' actions, setting their sights on Earth, while Megatron would rule with an iron fist, using his Decepticons as pawns in his plans. Deathsaurus would take a different approach, allowing his subordinates free rein to strategize while also holding them accountable for their failures, understanding that every step or misstep led him closer to his reactivation of his planet-destroying weapon. Whether it's Leozak in the Breast Force or Goryu in the Dino Force, no one is safe from his wrath. With his underlings allowed more freedom to plot and scheme, some, like Leozak and Hellbat, would try to dethrone the Decepticon Emperor, but Deathsaurus would stay one step ahead, keeping the two close to him and using their treachery against one another, allowing him to focus on loftier ambitions while honing his strategies as he deals with his largest obstacle and the Autobot Supreme Commander, Starsaber. Throughout Victory, the rivalry between Deathsaurus and Starsaber is a driving force that pushes both factions' leaders to their limits, as Deathsaurus deploys countless poison subordinates against Starsaber and the Autobots, as he gathers the energy needed to reignite the Dark Fortress. These constant schemes and plans would come to a head during an attack on the solar power station by the Decepticons. Here, Deathsaurus would gain the upper hand against Starsaber, wounding him and nearly ending the Autobot leader. But a last-minute intervention by God Jinroy to take a blast from the living metal-destroying cannon would change the course of history. Instead of Starsaber being mortally wounded, Jinroy would sacrifice his broken body to be rebuilt as Victory Leo, granting him the ability to combine with Starsaber to create Victory Saber, giving him enough strength to finally defeat Deathsaurus. While believing victory was in his grasp, Deathsaurus would make his most costly error, not finishing Starsaber completely and creating the hero responsible for his downfall, before Starsaber could stop Deathsaurus. The Decepticon Emperor of Destruction would find the ultimate source of power in the lost city of Atlantis, using the last of their conserved energy to raise Atlantis from the ocean floor, and harvest its stockpiles to finally power the planet-destroying fortress. In doing so, he would cause massive tidal waves that would plague the area surrounding Atlantis, endangering human, Autobot, and allied Decepticon lives while he would escape on the Thunder Arrow. This decision would yet again hinder his plans, as a now betrayed Goryu would leak the construction plans to the power source of the fortress, giving the Autobots the means to stop Deathsaurus at last. When coupled with Victory Leo being able to handle the combined Lio Kaiser and an enraged Starsaber able to face off yet again against Deathsaurus, the Decepticon Emperor of Destruction would be dispatched, leaving his corpse to float through the vast emptiness of space. In the Transformers Victory anime series, Deathsaurus would become a larger-than-life villain, plaguing the universe for many millennia, driven by grand and sinister ambitions. In more modern interpretations of the character, we retain some of his dark plans, but now he stands opposite the most iconic Decepticon of all, Megatron. While Deathsaurus would appear first in the Transformers Victory anime and manga in 1989, and will be briefly mentioned in the Dreamwave continuity. His story wouldn't be revisited in detail until 2005 with Fun Publications and Transformers Timelines. In this story arc, Deathsaurus would regain his title of Emperor of Destruction, and would set his sights on restoring the Decepticon Empire through the cloning of a massive Insecticon army. While he would fail and his work would be destroyed, Fun Publications would yet again use Deathsaurus in their New Wings universe. The next version of Deathsaurus would take a similar approach to the one seen in the Victory anime series, allowing him to lead from his throne as one of 14 Decepticon warlords, surrounded by his allies. This version of the character would be more deceitful, using white lies and half-truths to manipulate anyone who crosses his path, including the Combaticons, as they defected from this universe's elite guard, and set him on a collision course with Magnum of the Autobot High Command. But deceit is child's play for the Emperor, and in a true act of evil, he would attach a bomb to his Lieutenant Falcon, detonating it during a meeting with the other warlords, leaving only Megatron and Deathsaurus to vie for Decepticon control. The consequences of these decisions would be his undoing. as Deathsaurus would be weakened in battle with Magnum, and would then need to immediately face Megatron in gladiatorial combat as he looked to usurp his throne, once again showing that Deathsaurus' flaws don't lie with his lack of ambition, but with his lack of foresight. These flaws would be addressed in the next iteration in the IDW Comics continuity. Making his debut in the IDW Comics continuity in 2015's More Than Meets the Eye issue 39. IDW treats Deathsaurus much differently from his predecessors. Still a Decepticon at heart, he would now care more for his troops, not treating them like pawns but as true soldiers, concerned with their well-being and placing him opposite of Megatron's indifference. This indifference will be the catalyst for all of Deathsaurus' character arc, as he would defect from Megatron, landing himself on the Decepticon Justice Division's target list and pitting him against the DJD leader Tarn. But with Megatron joining the Autobot cause, Deathsaurus will join forces with Tarn and Overlord to take down their former leader and take with them an army to do so. With a battle that raged for days, Deathsaurus began to question this battle for revenge and the resulting loss of Sparks, leading him to recall his army and solidifying his stance on the well-being of those he led. This is a far cry from the Decepticon who would pit his subordinates against each other to keep them busy, or who would allow his Dino Force to be swept away in cataclysmic tidal waves. This is a softer Deathsaurus, one that will be rebooted with the Transformers continuity from IDW in 2019. With the next iteration from IDW, Deathsaurus will be re-envisioned as a corrupt diplomat, planning to obliterate life on the planet Probat to collect massive amounts of energon. This would bring him into direct conflict with Cliffjumper, ultimately leading to Cliffjumper placing Deathsaurus in a coma and creating an eternal enemy in the Decepticon Emperor of Destruction. While Deathsaurus' IDW appearances would end with him in simulation beating Cliffjumper for years to come, this would still not be the strangest version of the character. While released almost simultaneously with the Transformers Victory anime, the manga series would take a significantly different approach for Deathsaurus. In this series, Deathsaurus' conquest of Earth and the theft of its energy wouldn't be driven by some lust for power. Instead, it would be protect his wife Esmeralda and his fellow Decepticons, using the Ilgon energy to power his fortress in which they all called home. His approach to human life also varies wildly. While the anime would see Deathsaurus be careless with most other life forms, the manga will portray him in a softer light, having him adopt a human child, Solon Kitakazi, who he would raise to become a Decepticon and cyborg, fighting opposite Jan, the adopted son of Starsaber. While he would act as a father figure to Solon, he would also care for Jan as he stopped Solon from ending his life, a trait that would not be seen in other iterations of the character. While Deathsaurus would use Solon in battle for the integration of a mech suit named King Solon, which would act in the same fashion as Victory Leo, and allow him to take the form of King Saurus to rival Victory's saber. It would also be his downfall. Solon would turn against his adoptive father, joining forces with the Autobots, bringing the Autobots to the gates of the Decepticon fortress, and ending the Victory War with a peace agreement between the two factions. Over Deathsaurus' history, the Emperor of Destruction's personalities would vary wildly. From the dangerous strategist seen in the original anime, a silver-tongued crime lord from the Wings universe, a bot hell-bent on revenge in both IDW incarnations, to a Robin Hood-esque leader who deeply cares for his subordinates and their families. What lies ahead for Deathsaurus is unclear, with his last appearance in Transformers media occurring at the end of the IDW continuity, as his body was used by X-Archon. Little is known about the character's future. But with the Hasbro crowdfunded HasLab releases of both Victory Saber and Deathsaurus, hopefully the renewed interest in Victory characters will mean we'll see the Decepticon Emperor of Destruction menacing worlds again. With all that being said, what are your thoughts on Deathsaurus' legacy, and where do you want to see the character end up next? If you enjoyed our look at Deathsaurus and the lore of Transformers Victory, make sure to check out our video about Starsaber and his legacy of courage linked below. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay handsome.